Hello and welcome to episode 282 of the Thursday Night Podcast. My name's Brady, joined as always by David. And honestly, if we literally did not record like over the weekend, it would have been emergency pod time because the Georgia State men's basketball team has won a Division One game, has won a basketball game at all, which has been a rare occurrence this season. They improved to 2-9, so improve is a relative term, but they beat Jacksonville State at home. And
Extremely relative term because that game was, and we'll talk about it, but I don't know that you can necessarily walk away from that game feeling good, but somebody had to win it. So
yeah, I mean, it certainly wasn't like that Coastal game Jonas's first year where it was like the team's playing really bad and then they just shoot like 50% on threes and put up 101 points. Like, this wasn't one of those cases where you could get a lot of false hope from it, but we'll dig into it, obviously. We'll also cover the women's basketball team who lose a close one to Kennesaw, and both of them now getting ready for Sunbelt play this week. There are Sunbelt basketball games happening as we record this podcast on the men's and the women's side. So it's a blip because then there's going to be a couple weeks off until the new year again. But the Sunbelt has brought this forward now. I'm sure probably for the benefit of the teams who are like, give us these games in late December that we don't have to schedule, get teams to come to us. But that is going on. And brief bit of football stuff, just a funny trio of names that have entered the portal this week for Georgia State. Not a whole lot of news on that front, as that just has been the way this is getting handled, and we'll really have a greater sense of where everything stands when the portal opens, I imagine, by the time the portal opens. And then bowls to talk through. We'll go through our bowls and our college football playoff picks, but Georgia State 77, Jacksonville State 73. It honestly, we'll go through everything with this game that there is to talk about. Especially, we cannot not agonize over the details after a win, after going through how many losses, and some of them not that close of losses over the past few months of the year, as this has not been the best of watches for Panther fans. But if the one stat that you don't need any more analysis than this is Georgia State was plus 17 free throws. They made 27 of 32. Jax State made 10 of 20. And more than a few of those misses were in the last few minutes of the game when Jacksonville State either was close to tying it or had the lead briefly and could add on to it and was not able to. So, on a macro level, with how the game played out, it mattered. And then also on the micro level of those little moments late in the game that it could have continued to flip. It didn't. But Georgia State's up by 6 at the half. Gets outshot 49% to 40% in the second half. Only forced 4 turnovers all game, and so just defense wasn't doing quite enough to put the game away. They were not playing complementary enough to where they were able to get that much of a comfortable lead, and then Jacksonville State kind of roared back at the end. But free throws, timely baskets at the end was enough to get the win here for Georgia State, and they take care of business at home, which it had been a month since they'd played at home. They've only played 3 games at home this season. And they definitely should be 3-0. They are 2-1 at home. So for all the agony that is warranted about this team, they're winning 66% of their home games. So that at least is normal for now. We'll see where that looks when conference play is over. But if they can keep just doing stuff at home, and it's going to at least not be a thoroughly embarrassment of a season, thoroughly embarrassing season.
No,
that is actually English.
Very true. I will say, in watching this game, if you like good shooting, you probably hated this game. And do not be fooled by the 70s of where the score was. Because, it was an offensive slugfest of the we are not good at offense variety. Both teams just really struggled to put the ball in the basket consistently. Jacksonville State, especially in the first half, they missed 8 point blank shots. It surprises me that they were able to get up to 40 points in the paint because they could not hit anything around the rim. And it wasn't even like Georgia State was particularly playing good defense on all of them. Yes, they contested a good bit of them, and they had some good opportunities on defense to at least force Jacksonville State to alter their shot, but I would not say that this was one of those games where somebody just took over down low and dominated for Georgia State. They had 3 blocks in the entire game. That's 2 of these are from guards. So it was definitely a struggle. You can see the shooting numbers. another game where it just looks very difficult for Georgia State to make threes, and they definitely are taking too many. They made more field goals from distance than Jacksonville State did, and ultimately with the free throw discrepancy as well, that ended up being the ball game.
Yeah, 5 of 14 from 3 in the second half, so it didn't. It actually, they shot more of them in the second half because they only shot 10 in the first, but got better, even though it wasn't just like they got away from it. This team has certainly gotten to where they're getting into the kind of jack up threes as an offensive strategy at times for sure, but it worked more than not in the second half, as they did end up scoring 40 in the second half, though a lot of that was at the line, 15 of 19 in the second half from the free throw line. Jelani Hamilton was properly back in this one. He had played against Kennesaw, but was on a kind of clear minutes restriction. Plays 33 minutes in this one. Not that efficient. 23 points on 5 of 15, 2 of 8 from 3. But he was kind of the leader in the clubhouse of making those free throws, 11 of 12. The thing I've talked about a couple of times now since he's been back is he is getting to the line at a pretty absurd clip, and he is taking advantage of it when he does so. And then next down the line, you have Micah Tucker, 7 of 7 from the line. Really efficient stuff from him in this one. He used 16 points on 4 of 7, 1 of 2 from 3, and those free throws. Ja'Kai Newton, 5 of 7 from the line, 13 points. Also, I think probably his most efficient game. I think he was the beneficiary early in the season. I remember I talked about this in the Presbyterian game, where it's Jelani is out, so he is going to get a lot more shots up and get more comfortable. And now I think it's a benefit to him that Jelani is back, and that he can go back to being maybe more like the third option offensively. Because I don't think he is quite that level of a scorer, and you saw that in some of the inefficient numbers he was putting up in the games where he was, along with Micah, kind of having to carry it. But this one, only 6 shots, 13 points, and he does what he does at the defensive end. He brings a lot of energy still there, and there is a once a game Ja'Kai is an athletic freak play where I don't remember exactly what it was in this one, but you'll look up and you'll see something where it's a block of a guy making a dunk or whatever. And so kind of a weird weird season to judge with him, because he is still coming back and really playing his first college basketball ever in a consistent games in a row type of nature, because Indiana, his career did not really ever get to take off because of injuries. So I feel like this could be, you hope, a sign of maybe the type of player he can be, where you're not asking him to do as much as he maybe was doing in the November games and heading into conference play, knowing he can shoot threes, he can make his own shot time to time, but you also have Jelani kind of finding his flow. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but I'll round it out to a point about maybe the reasons to not get over your skis, and certainly I don't think anyone listening to this is suddenly going to change their tack on the Jonas Hayes experience, but we had another one of those trademark 5-minute 49 stretch of time without a made field goal in the second half, and that turned what was a 58-47 lead for Georgia State into a tie game or thereabouts by the time that run ended. And so for whatever reason, this team is just incapable of going a full 40-minute game without a long lapse in scoring, whether it's literally or whether it's just on made field goals. But an issue in this one that made, when you're up 11 with, it was 11-ish to go, you can at that point turn that into a game that you keep around 11 rest of the way, go on a run here or there, and then you look up in the final score, you win by 18-19, and it's all right, this was a nice, comfortable win. This team had to sweat it, and this team might have to keep sweating it just because we keep seeing these kind of symptoms crop up basically every game. This just happened to be one they did not lose, and it is the reverse picture of last year when they did lose this game at Jacksonville State. Very similar vibes. They were the better team in that one for a long stretch of the game. They didn't win the game because they were bad in closing time. They did enough here.
And that's fine. For as much as you and I are not moral victory people, and this was a literal victory, sometimes you just got to take that they closed it out. This is the type of thing that you hope that they can build on going forwards. I liked what I saw from Tucker. Sometimes I forget that he is a true freshman. The game looks...
He's earned that badge at this point.
Exactly.
He's not going to play a perfect game all the time, but it does not look like a freshman mistake. And there were some of those in the first couple of games, but he's really cleaned that up. And now it's just kind of you don't have to play a perfect game. Like, you're gonna have stuff. It's what you do with the next possession. And yeah, this one, 3 assists, 1 turnover, and the shooting numbers I mentioned. I don't know what his future looks like. Especially, we don't know in this day and age if he even sticks after the season, whether Jonas is staying or not. Like, you can't ever bank on that anymore. But I do really want to see what he looks like in 2 seasons, and I think it would be good for Georgia State if he's still here. I think because one, fans love that continuity. Fans love to talk, like, cheer for a guy 3 years in a row, which is just so rare these days, or so much rarer. But also, it feels like there's still so much more to go, and we're talking about a guy who dropped 16 in this game, and there's not a whole lot to write home about that he didn't do well. So by the end of the season, it could be another situation like we saw with Jelani last year, where whatever the results on the court look like, by the end of the year, he's playing his best, and you're really pining for him to stick around, whoever the head coach is next season, because the progress has been tangible. And that's not been something we've said a lot about these Jonas Hayes young guys. We haven't really seen it until this year, and so props for them for finding it. Props for Micah for hitting the ground running in college. And the other thing to mention from this one, 'cause I don't know how much more we have to say, Joe Chappelle does get hurt. He kind of dives for a loose ball in the first half. I'm not a doctor. Did not look great live. Anthony Eno stepped up, leads the team with 12 rebounds. Only player, either team in double digits in boards, gets 7 points, and that was only in 22 minutes. And so Christian Beam didn't play in this one. Seems like maybe there's just kind of a bit of a, I don't know, it's all happening too fast for him right now and just kind of stepping back. And also, Jonas has always reduced his rotations by this point in the season anyway, whether it's through injury or whatever. Just he does clamp down. It's like, all right, we gotta get into the flow of things with guys that are going well. And then Trey Scott played 29 minutes, so he also filled in there 6 and 6. So don't know how long term the Chappelle thing is, but a couple of guys there making plays in his absence, and also part of the reason why they won the game. You manage the adversity that comes your way. They did so in this one, just enough to get the win.
Yeah. Full disclosure, did not like much of what Trey Scott did on the offensive side of the game. Like that, basically every time. I know he got the 6 points, and 3 of 7 isn't the most inefficient or anything like that, but those 2 threes, not good looks. Just did not feel like he was particularly comfortable there, and that's going to come with time, like we just talked about with Tucker.
You hope it at least.
Yes, that's true. You hope that it comes with time, but it just did not seem from my eyes that he felt particularly comfortable, with the ball in his hand. So hopefully he is able to kind of improve and let the game on that side slow down, because defensively I thought he was good.
Yeah. It still hasn't, we haven't seen a game from him where it feels like he is totally comfortable offensively in the role he's being asked to play, and also just kind of taking the stuff that he is skilled at and turning it into a full package on the basketball court. That's an undertaking for sure. It's a guy who, again, this is his first meaningful minutes of college, and he redshirted last year, so I think with the way that Jonas offered, that they thought he was this and this and this in the preseason, there was an expectation, and that's expectations you're putting on your own player there by mentioning him. It's not an unfair thing for fans to look at and say the coaches we're talking about, this is one of the guys they wanted to mention as someone who's doing well. We haven't seen that yet, but maybe if Chappelle is more longer term than this, we're obviously going to see it no matter what. So I guess you kind of hope that if he keeps playing 29-minute stretches, that you start seeing it be a little more comfortable there. Just a final thought on it is just kind of like the football thing. The players are still out there trying, and they're fighting this one. The one thing is you can't bank on a plus 17 advantage on the free throw every game. So if that's how you're coasting to wins, if you're getting a 4-point victory where you're plus 17 at the charity stripe, that's not a sustainable path. Because yes, you think you're going to make a lot of them because this has been a very good free throw shooting team all season, but you can't bank on that type of discrepancy every night. And so that's another reason to maybe temper. But also, if you've been watching, if this is game 11 and you've watched the first 10, or at least with the ones that weren't on streaming sites you didn't want to pay for, I hope you at least took some enjoyment from this being a victory, because you can't go through the dog days of just a bunch of losses in a row, uncompetitive games, and then when you get a win, not at least give yourself a moment to just be a little bit happy. And for what we were talking about with Jonas saying, like, this hasn't been a confident bunch, certainly if they're going to make more of the season than any of us expect, they need to grab some confidence from this one, no matter what it felt like. So even if it's a little bit of false bravado because it's a 4-point win and all the reasons we just went through why it wasn't that big of a win in the scheme of things, and Jacksonville State doesn't seem great, the team needs to take steps in that direction in a major way. So you kind of hope they just take it and run with it.
Yeah, I mean, we like I said earlier, we cannot be the types to shy away from any sort of moral victory here. It's nice that they still actually got the win, but you really hope that this is something that can build confidence for them going forward, because that's the other thing. Like, they just have not felt like a very confident bunch throughout this year. So if this is a, tipping off point, jumping off point or whatever, hey, let's do it.
And this is when the rubber meets the road. This is when, kind of quote, the season starts, because now conference play, and they're entering 2-9, so they would have to significantly overperform expectations to get to a winning record when the season's done. They'd have to go 10 games over in conference play, go 15-5. So don't think that's necessarily a fair benchmark, but the work will start this week. On the road, they will go to Georgia Southern. That will be Thursday at 8 p.m. Then they will head up the mountain to Boone to face App State Saturday at 1 p.m. Both these teams enter conference play themselves with winning records. First we'll go with the Eagles, the rivals. The second time they'll play in that new arena down there in Statesboro. Southern is 8-5, and they are a perfect 5-0 at home. And they are, in fact, winners of 5 straight. And this will be their third straight game against an in-state opponent, because last Thursday they beat Coastal Georgia 100-58, and then they went on the road to Carrollton. They beat West Georgia 90-85 on the 13th. The things to say here going to be a bit similar to the Kennesaw State little spiel. It's a team that allows 79 points a game, but it's also a team that scores 83 themselves and run one of the fastest tempos in the country. So
good Georgia Southern basketball is allergic to having both a good offense and a good defense. Like, you could tell me that this is a 2015 to 2017 Georgia Southern basketball team, and I would have 100% believe you.
Well, I mean, the head coach was then, now what he's doing at Vanderbilt, so they had a good one then, for sure, in Mark Byington. But Charlie Henry feels like it's on pace to be their best year since he has gotten there, so, I wonder what that feels like. But the thing that is concerning, aside from that they're going quick, they're top 40 in fastest possession, or at smallest average possession length is, I guess, the way that Ken Palm delineates it. So they're going to be looking to go fast. They also turn teams over a good bit and don't turn it over themselves very much, which was always a trait that Ron Hunter's best teams had. So you can certainly kind of see the similarities there, even though it's a different system. But certainly something I remember is that I think that run SBC team that only lost once in conference play was the number one turnover offense in the nation, way less than anybody else. And so it's on the road, which is enough of a red flag for this team the way it's gone under Jonas Hayes. And it's a style clash that if they are not able to impose their own style, kind of slow things down, we saw this game happen. It was against Kennesaw. It would feel the same kind of hurt for fans to lose by double digits to this team as well. But right now, just based on what we've seen, even though they're coming off a win, it's hard to see it until it happens that they're going to clean that up enough to be able to hang with a team that wants to just run up and down the court. So Spud Webb, the leading scorer, 16 points a game, certainly the one to watch. Tyron Moore is back. He went to UAB last season in the portal and now has returned. Marfo is what that's called. Real ones know. And then out in Applewhite, Nicavion White as well, or the next leading scorers as well. Basically everyone, I guess White's not a starter, but 4 guys average at or about double figures. Guys that are going to take a lot of the shots, play a lot of the minutes. They're certainly the ones to watch there. And then I guess on the Georgia State side, it's kind of like handling this moment. How are they looking after a win if they are rejuvenated? How does Micah Tucker handle going into the hostile rivalry environment, going to a conference game for the first time? And obviously Joey Chappelle's status as well will be, we'll just kind of have to see. I mean, I kind of think even if I had a media thing with Jonas this week, which we don't really do midweek stuff with basketball, in future I might start trying to ask for that more just because I like hearing kind of the preview talk from coaches when stuff comes up, but that's for another, not even a podcast, that's just for like just a whole other conversation. But
it's good information.
I don't know that we would have heard much because Jonas has never been particularly forthcoming with stuff like that. So I think we'll all find out maybe from Dave Cohen on the pregame radio show or maybe just when the broadcast happens. But certainly Chappelle has been the leading rebounder most games and has been he's a 3-shooter on occasion. They can't just assume like they can replace him like they did well enough against Jax State going forward. So that's certainly something to watch. And then flip it around, Saturday against App State, complete opposite. Very slow pace, team that prides itself on defense. The Mountaineers are 7-5 right now, and they just came off a nice neutral site win over High Point. This is something I'll say about both these teams that is clearly not the case about Georgia State. They're hitting their stride at the right time, and Georgia State's all coming off a win, but I don't think you would argue is in exactly the same kind of winning frame of mind that these two teams are, which is kind of, we've seen this before, where it's just kind of like it's the difference in quality of coaching. It's just like the coaches are able to get their players lined up at the right moment, and App State took some bad losses earlier in the year. They got creamed by Elon at home. Exceedingly rare thing to happen under Justin Kearns to give up as many points as they did at home. But they've got it cleaned up, and they're coming off a good win themselves, and so, and it's always, even when those weren't great App State teams, for whatever reason, it's kind of been a weird place for Georgia State to go and win anyway. So you factor in that this isn't the best Georgia State team, and I will just say for me, if they win one of these two, it would be a triumph. I mean, they've only won one Division I game all season, so it would be doubling up that category. But we're still in wait and see mode with this team.
And that's fine. I don't think that's a criticism to sit there and say, like, this is a tough road trip. Because, it is a tough road trip. Even if this was a good Georgia State team, I don't think you and I would change our tune specifically at the difficulty of this road trip, given the stylistic clashes and where this team has specifically struggled. I do think that, they have a good chance against App State just simply because if you can slow Georgia State down, that kind of plays into how Georgia State wants to play anyways. Which is fine. Like that, as long as Georgia State is capable of hitting their shots, which, has been sort of the issue this year so far. But I would say that I would give them a chance. It's not like App State shoots the three particularly well. That has been something that has killed Georgia State. And, just as they came off their game against Jacksonville State, Georgia State hits their free throws. That's the one thing. Like, we've talked about rebounding sometimes. We've talked about turnovers. Those are certainly issues. But when it comes to the quote-unquote free points at the line, Georgia State is very good at taking advantage of that. So if this is an App State team that puts Georgia State at the free throw line a lot, I definitely like Georgia State's chances in that way. Don't know that I would specifically pick them to, dominate this game or anything like that, but I think this could be a very low-scoring game, and Georgia State will hang around in it a lot more than I think that they would hang around versus Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern would just need to have a very cold night.
Yeah, I mean, to your point on the free throws, it's just perplexing, bewildering to me that you can have a team that's in the top 40 in free throw percentage that is in the bottom 5 in effective field goal percentage, bottom 10 in 2-point and 3-point percentage. Like, it's not an exact 1-to-1. It's not a perfect science, but there is something to, if you're making free throws, you are gifted enough shooting the basketball. It is not a great assessment of the coaching staff that the best place where this team is offensively is when there is no impediment to the players putting the ball in the hoop and they're standing at the free-throw line, and it is literally just like them keeping their poise, going through their routine and making shots. So I don't think you can bank on that. That's how I ended my Jackson State spiel about. It's like you can't expect that, but maybe you can in this specific game against App State, because not only is Georgia State very good at it, App State as a team is shooting 61% on free throws. So I don't think that I would expect that they're going to be plus 17 in free throws many more games this season, but maybe the two they play against App State are the last two I would take pretty good odds on it happening if it were to happen. And that is the way that you could maybe make up the road environment, the tough defense, that if you're not getting looks to go in the flow of the offense, if you're at least getting in the line, then maybe that's where you make up the difference. So I do agree with you that I think of these two, App is the more gettable game, which straw poll of any time that these games or any game, and the other one being a trip to Boone, being like, if you're going to be like, which of these is the more winnable? Can't imagine there have been many times that Georgia State's had to travel that we have sized up the App State one as the more possible win. So, not sure. I don't know that it says anything about App so much. I mean, it's kind of, they're in a down year, but it's also just like the style of this team. There'd be years where even if App was a worse team than a team who maybe goes up and down the court, they might have been more suited to defend the fast team. I just don't think that they've got the horses or the right style or the ability to put that style on display until I see it against the teams like Georgia Southern. Then they're really going to look to push tempo. So I guess not a lot more to say. We'll see how those games play out, but I'm just curious if you've done a look at the rest of the season, if you have like a number in mind of like not probable, like what you would put the win-loss at. I did chart this out myself. I feel comfortable saying we'd both give them Columbia College. I guess we did have some doubts about that last episode, but I think the Koalas maybe not the best, even grading on the curve of the non-Division One. But I think giving them that one, we don't know who they're playing for the MAC yet. I assume that'll come fairly soon. I forget when that happened last season, but that will be a similarly slated team, so winnable and at home. I kind of feel like I could give them both those right now, sight unseen. They would have to go 6-12 the rest of the way to get to 10 wins in conference play. I think they can get there. I just don't know if they will. And that is not any kind of broad endorsement of like, this is going great, that they could get to 6 wins and somehow get to 10-20 as their record, or 10-21. Is that whatever it would shake out? The game not being on the schedule is throwing me in my projections, but I don't know if you would given any thought to it as well.
No, I haven't charted it out, but I can tell you this. So last year they were 14-19 and 8-10 in Sun Belt play. Obviously, based on their record right now, in order to just repeat that, they would have to go, 12-10 to do that? Did I do that math right? Given that they are currently 7 games under 500, going 2 above does feel like such a tall task. But if you just sit there and say that, okay, they will split the home and homes that they have, I think there is a chance to end around 10 wins, scrap to get to 10 wins. And I think 10 wins is not the goal. Do not mishear me. But I do think that this team does have 8 wins in them. As long as they, there's not any sort of injuries that we don't know about, or, was it Chappell that was out?
Yeah, it's just about like, one, it's like, this is how we have discussed this team now. Like, we can't suddenly be like, all right, it's 20 wins on the table. Like, what's this team going to do in March? Like, we are not going to have that conversation. But it also is worth saying, them finishing 10-21 or whatever it ended up being after the Sun Belt tournament would be miles better than them going 5-25. Like, there are levels to this thing, and yes, they have gone that poorly before under Jonas Hayes, so it's not like this would be new territory. But it would be if they were not winning games in league play and only getting 2 wins in non-con or 3 wins in non-con, adding in Columbia. So it's like, it is not trying to spin this as a success. It's just kind of like, this is how they could maybe have the next few months of watching this team be a lot more bearable. They can play their way to 33% win percentage in league play, winning some games at home. It would be an improvement, however much it wouldn't feel like that, on the last couple of months this season watching them play. So I guess that's kind of where I'm looking at it, and I think you might need to take this one against App to feel like you could really get there. Just because they're one of the teams at home you feel more likely you can beat for some of the injuries we're laying out. They play Louisiana and ULM on the road, which is a bad beat because those are two teams that if they were at home, you'd feel pretty comfortable circling them as wins. That happened last year.
As bad as Georgia State has been, Louisiana stinks, man.
Yeah, year one struggles there for their new coach, Quantas White. So they're in this place that Georgia State was a few years back, where it's like, oh, year one, work out the kinks, and maybe they do turn it around where Jonas was unable to, but that's neither here nor there. Just, I guess, an interesting thought experiment to end our men's basketball discussion.
Just also real fast.
Yeah, go ahead.
Depending on how Georgia State looks going into that February 19th game against Georgia Southern, those last 2 weekends being at home, like, I'm not saying that they're just going to happen to win 4 straight games, because I do believe James Madison is good. I think Coastal is closer to where Georgia Southern is in the standings. And honestly, off the top of my head, I don't remember how Old Dominion has done so far this year. Quick fact checking. Old Dominion is 3-8. Georgia State's 2-9. So Old Dominion's not having the best year, which kind of proves my point, because on Valentine's Day, Georgia State goes on the road to Old Dominion, so there is a nice little cushion to end the year. It would not surprise me if they're able to get 5 wins right there. Yes, obviously that is a big ask for this team to win 5 in a row, but right. Just given the quality of the opponent as we sit here right now, and I do think it's okay to say that Georgia State has kind of underperformed where they could be. Because remember, last week I said I would take mid. This game against Jacksonville State, that was mid. That's what Georgia State looks like when they play a mid basketball game. And I think that if they play like they played against Jacksonville State, 10 wins is absolutely on this schedule. You can 100% say that they could get to 10 wins if they play like that against how they did against Jacksonville State. Now, playing like that against other D1 basketball teams is like the whole ball game here. We've got hours on this team already talking about how we don't know that they could do that. But I do think specifically with how the schedule kind of balances out this year, a little run there going into the Sun Belt tournament is not impossible. But
yeah, and we don't know what the roster, everything would look like next season, but if that happens, it wouldn't just be like a theoretical, oh, it's nice that they didn't lose a bunch of games. It could be people that are helping on next year's team developing. And it's like, oh, you're seeing Mike Tucker take these steps, and that could be meaningful heading into next season. Don't know how it's going to shake out, but just as far as, like, there's still things to care about if you're still watching these games. And it wouldn't turn into a case of just kind of like, yay, rooting for mediocrity. There's little micro reasons, I think, to care, and just interested to see how this team continues to take shape. We talked in the preseason about, like, well, this is a year you got to go win like 20 games to kind of flip this thing. And that is, I don't think mathematically impossible yet, but functionally that's not
getting there.
The season that was going to save the whole tenure has not happened. And so rather than just kind of talk about that for months on end, I'm interested to see how conference play shakes out, just because what is this team going to do with this opportunity when the cliche, but not that cliche thing, where record's 0-0 right now. So what are they going to do with that? Not going to matter as far as the way the season feels in totem, but you got a chance here with your little mini 20-game season to just make something more than what has come before. So we will see how that happens as it happens starting this week with 2 road games at Georgia Southern, at App State. The women's team is also going to be on the road to start Sun Belt play this week. They're also going to Georgia Southern on Thursday. They're going to Coastal Carolina on Saturday. It's a 5 p.m. in Statesboro, which I guess you should say the men's game may not start at 8. I feel like I remember the last time this happened, there was a delayed start there because the women's game ran a little bit long. So 8 o'clock for the men's and 5 p.m. for when the women's game starts, because that's a doubleheader there. Like when that happens, it's nice that it could work out like that. Women's team did lose this week, 69-63 to Kennesaw, so not the same kind of flavor of losses the men's team took on the road at Kennesaw, but a loss nonetheless. Kind of on a lower scale, the same story as the Mississippi State loss, where They got outscored 24-14 in the second quarter and lost by 6. So just one quarter where things really got away from you was the difference in that one. And it just kind of goes back to their 26 turnovers forced versus 17 that they committed, and they were +5 only in the points off turnovers. They had 20, Kennesaw had 15. Just right now, this team is not maximizing their game the best that they're able to, and that's why they're losing close games like this. It's a different story when they're just getting, they're not lose by a lot against Miami, just wasn't your day, but even in these ones where they have a chance, it's just a case of like when they were stacking wins last season in the back end of conference play, it was just that they were doing enough in their style to win these games that were tight. And this is one where, they played close, but they're not doing enough to take it to that nth degree that would take them to those wins. And so you feel closer than you did when you see the results down in South Beach, but still got to see that happen and start to see them stack some wins to kind of turn the flavor of the season around, because heading into conference play with a losing record, and you're going to need to get a winning streak going to kind of get yourself out of that hole. So that's kind of where it is. It's still savable, but it's not a no-hoper like the men's side, but work to do. And now this is a Georgia Southern team that's 7-3 and a Coastal team that is 6-5 and who literally ended your season last year in Pensacola. So it's a good basketball program.
I think, unfortunately, the women's problem is depth. And it is very clear to me why they're having these second and third quarter lulls. Because if you look at the Kennesaw State game, the Georgia State's bench was 2 of 4 from 3, 6 points. That was it. That's all they got from the bench in that game. They shot 9 shots. 7 of them were not threes, and they missed all 7 of the non-threes. That's not how the math works. 5 of them were not threes, excuse me. And they missed all of them. When you look up and down the starters, Ari Dyson, 11 points, 5 of 9 from the floor. Cheyenne Holloman, 9 points, 4 of 6 from the floor. I don't think we need to talk about Crystal Henderson. We know she is Crystal Henderson. Kaylee Addy didn't have a great efficient day, sure. Still gave you 6 points. Morgan Robinson-Wegu, 11 points, 4 of 10 from the floor. Outside of Kaylee Addy, everybody, all of the starters really did give you a lot. So it's very clear to me that these defensive lapses and it's all about the rotations and what is happening, when you're trying to give the starters rest. Because, yeah, it's great that, Crystal Henderson played 39 minutes. I don't think that she's going to be able to do that every single game. I don't think that everybody on this team is going to be able to play 39 minutes. That's just not how it works. You do need to, unfortunately, give these humans some rest. And the bench just has not been up to snuff. And that's a legitimate problem. Having 4 fouls and, I'm sure it was intentional fouls a lot, but 14 minutes and 4 fouls is a lot of fouls, so finding ways to improve we talk about the turnovers. This is a team that is able to, play good defense. So why are we just getting all of these big quarters, low offense type quarters? It's just that something is not adding up. So either the starters are going to have to give even more, or the bench is going to have to be able to relieve the starters in a way that actually helps them. Because for now, it's just not been good enough. And, if you have a quarter where you're down 10 in the quarter and you lose by 6, that's the whole game right there. And it's unfortunate because I think you could look at the box score and say, outside of the rebounds, which we know, it wasn't necessarily a bad game for Georgia State. It really wasn't. Yes, you would like to see more from the floor, but I'll take 41% from the floor, 39 from 3. Yeah, I'd like to see a higher free throw percentage, but you shot 7 of them. So, attempt more free throws. I don't know. But yeah, it's just frustrating because one quarter has sunk them, pretty significantly in some of their losses this year. And they're definitely scuffling at this point. You can officially say that they're scuffling. They've lost 4 in a row. you talked on the men's side about some teams like Georgia Southern going into conference play feeling good, and I don't know that you can feel great about the women right now. And I know the Miami game was in there. I know they had the close loss to FIU, but you would much rather have gotten this win against Kennesaw State or, gotten that win against Central Arkansas instead of looking like how they did. So,
to say nothing of Georgia State fans are going to have a complex about Kennesaw at this point. You got to beat them in some sport to make people feel better about things, because there's a perception issue going on of just people feeling especially lapped. And now this is both basketball programs losing, football coming up next fall. So brighter days ahead, Georgia State fans hope, against the Owls. But it was not to be this basketball season on either front. Mentioned the rebounding, which is kind of always a story. So just going to be the first stat I look to when we're looking at the other teams at this point, just every time. Georgia Southern getting out rebounded, they're minus 1.6 on the season. So an opportunity there to not have that be the story for you. Coastal is plus 3.3 themselves, so a positive margin. And so with Georgia State's issues there, a positive margin would be some cause of concern, but it is not like these are like the far and away dominant rebounding teams in the league. So you're not starting from a place of that being a super massive perceived weakness. It just kind of, you can't get snowed under by it. So we'll see how the men's team and the women's team do, both hitting the road for this little pre-conference season, conference week. Certainly going to be, we saw them do this exact same thing last year, where they started out 1-6 in league play and turn it around. I think you kind of hope, especially because you're already 4-7, that you're not going to dig yourself a further hole at the beginning of conference play. But we have seen them manage it and find it late in the season before. But I think the time is running out to do it and leave yourself in a good enough position, because they were playing really good basketball by the end of last season. But because of where they had started from, the best they could get to still required them to be playing 3 games plus in Pensacola before even reaching the semis. So you don't want to continue to have to rely on that, because at a certain point the games start stacking up against you, and the teams who have rest at the end of the season certainly is a benefit because it's a gauntlet of a year. So start a basketball season proper, because league play is really the magic bullet in mid-major basketball. It really is whatever you have left behind you in the first, you hope you learn stuff about yourself, but ultimately is not that big of a factor what happens in non-con, because you've got league play to really kind of make your name. So we'll see how these teams do that heading forward, starting this week on the road. Wanted to hit one more thing here with football before we go into the bowls and pick 'em. Just funny how these things work out. Got the whole counter up. I think we're up to 22 players who announced they are leaving. I will link the Panther Talk portal tracker in the description of this, just if you haven't seen it, if you're looking for a full accounting, and I add a little blurb for each player, just kind of here's how you should read this departure if you maybe didn't know who this player was, or you're just kind of looking for a general sense of the picture of the roster at this point. But this week was just a funny trio of names to pop in, because it was Braden McAllister, kicker. So you have the guy who makes the school record 60-yarder. That record's going to stand for if Georgia State for 80 years. I don't know. In the next time, I know kicking is getting easier in the NFL. You're making 65-yarders look like cake now, but I feel like that record's going to stand a long time. And then you also had TJ Finley, who I don't really want to, I don't feel like using this as my soapbox to yell about stuff, but I don't know that he's going to get the extra year. Certainly a lot of people on Twitter were animated by the fact that he is entering the portal, but if you needed confirmation that he was not going to be in the future plans for Georgia State, there you go. And then the last one, Tyler Scott, who I feel bad for, just never gave himself a chance to really have much of a story here, other than kind of the big, ugly national one where grabs the chain off of the Ole Miss player in the pregame of the opener. And frankly, the team didn't recover from that. I'm not directly drawing that's why it happened, but it certainly was as bad. That's a 1-11 mojo, or that's a 1-11 type omen. And so the season did kind of play out where it never really recovered from the tailspin of that preseason situation. But just kind of three fitting names of entering the portal this week for Georgia State.
I wish him well. I mean, the season. It's funny because you think about specifically the McAllister one, and it's like, oh man, I mean, you just set a school record, but then if you look back, it's like it wasn't a good year, So I get it. Like, this is why we have the transfer portal. I don't wish ill on anybody that is out here playing college football, so I wish them well. I wish the results were better and they felt that they could stay, but. I mean, the field goals were an issue. I think everybody was shocked that they even lined up for that attempt anyways. So the fact that he made it, kudos to him. Like, his name will be in some record book at Georgia State for until it's broken. And like you said, it could legitimately be like 80 years before it is broken, just given the way that special teams works at the school. So, and as for Scott, I mean, it sucks because obviously he did not derail the season, like that. It would be intellectually dishonest to say that a huge loss to a college football team, a college football playoff team.
It did a number on his own personal season because
Correct.
he didn't see the field again until like the injury situation was like the worst point it was for the corners. He played a couple of games, played against South Al, but other than that, like, he was in the doghouse for a long time, and just so. If he's leaving to get playing time, part of it's like that situation started a whole situation for him. So
yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about vibes though, and the vibes never recovered. Partially due to a couple other things as well, but I do think that there are that type of stuff can build. That type of stuff can linger when you have a teammate where you feel like you don't know what type of person they're going to be, and you don't know if you're going to have to end up defending them in a way that seems you deem unnecessary. So I do get it. I really do.
Yeah, and on Braden, like, Georgia State is not going to make or break their success on making 60-yarders. They need to get out of the kicking 60-yard field goals business. They need to be, when they're taking them, they're making them from 35 or whatever, and that had not been consistent enough. And so it always felt like this was going to be the last year for him and Liam Rickman, as far as kind of like, got to get someone else in there and kind of shake it up. But obviously, if you've got that in your leg and you put that on tape, and he was always a good kickoff specialist, certainly I think he'll land somewhere. He was at Charlotte before, makes a 60-yarder, does kickoffs. I feel like no doubt he'll be on an FBS roster somewhere just based on those skills. But it wasn't consistent enough, and sometimes just everyone needs a change of scenery, and certainly I think that would be the case here. Continue to track the roster stuff, the coaching stuff. As anything continues to come out on that, we will address it on the podcast. And I'm really just waiting to get the full picture on the roster side. We've talked about names here or there. We obviously just spent a few minutes talking about just three that came in this last week. Really want to wait until the real flood across the sport happens, when the portal actually opens, to do a big discussion, because it's just still too early. There might be a lot more names. There might be not that many more names, but we won't know until really they start putting their names in officially. So I kind of want to table that, really hit that harder on the other side of the holidays and the new year as we get a lot more information on that. So as and when it dictates that we have to circle back to football, we will. But for the time being, the next thing we'll touch on is the games that are still happening with Sunbelt teams, college football playoff. And I don't know if this is kind of like the gif of guy at the window just kind of looking longingly. But Georgia State's not involved this year. So obviously maybe a sore subject for some, but you got to round out the pick'em in style, run through the Sunbelt Bowls, at least the ones that didn't already happen. Would seem a little bit unfair to include those, although for posterity, I did put the ones that I picked them as I did, which meant I had Jacksonville State beating Troy last night. I put that. I had Old Dominion losing to South Florida. I put that. South Florida did not win. ODU gets to 10 wins we Cure Bowl tonight as we record this. And the one that just started, and literally I couldn't tell you the score, Louisiana, Delaware, we both picked Louisiana. So that one doesn't, like, there's no unfairness there to be gained from that one. So if we want to count that one, I don't know what the score is. I picked them 2 6-6 teams, just kind of like, I'll pick the Sunbelt team here to get it done. Sunbelt needs to kind of row back in the reputation on the bowl front. Like, been letting it slip a little bit, where there were a couple years ago, it was always like they were like the top bowl conference. There was the year they sent nearly damn near the entire league.
It was like
to a bowl
8
game.
teams or something like that, something crazy.
It was like 12.
Yeah, it was insane.
Sorry,
I think it was like 8 wins of the 12 teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
And there's other years where like it was only 7, but they went 6-1. They're starting to lose some games. Obviously, with ODU winning tonight as we recorded this, there's at least one. There's another guaranteed one because it's 2 Sunbelt teams playing.
Full disclosure, I think it's just important for us to say what we would have thought those games were. I thought that Troy was going to win today. And so, but those 3, not counting those, just since we didn't get them in before we recorded the podcast. Don't know how much we even need to really talk about these games, but we can, go through if you've got some takes. Let me know.
We already touched on the Troy Jacksonville State of it last episode. It's
exactly.
Kind of good that this is happening.
Yeah.
Their head coach, Jax State's head coach, was after the game said, we need to play this game every year. So it'd be fun if that brought it was an old rivalry. They hadn't played it in a while, obviously because Troy had made the jump. So if this is the reason that happens and it starts being scheduled every year at OnCon, I think that's a benefit for everyone involved. And so also, that's a plus for bowl games.
Yeah.
Making things happen.
That's what we want to see. So we both have Arkansas State in the Xbox Bowl. That's a fake bowl, by the way. I don't really know how that materialized, but it's the Xbox
It is
Bowl.
a very real Xbox that every player is getting in their gift package.
Which is cool. That is very cool. But yeah, that's okay. That's fake.
Missouri State. It's an assist to Coastal on this one because Missouri State's coach goes to Coastal. Some shakeup there benefits Arkansas State. I believe they're playing for a bowl, obviously, but I believe they are also playing for a trophy.
I think so. Yes, I think I saw that there was an Xbox trophy of some sort.
No, not a Missouri State Arkansas State trophy. Apparently this is an ancient rivalry as well, and there's a trophy involved.
Oh, that I didn't know.
Another one that bowl games are making things happen.
I'd like to see that. We'll talk about Oregon James Madison a little bit. I like that you said that you think James Madison will cover because, how do I put this? I feel like while I love Oregon doesn't love me, and they tend to slip up in games. Not like this specifically, but they sometimes they just come out a little.
The line
flat.
is huge.
Yeah,
it's 21 or 21 and a half.
Exactly.
It is a large, and we're not a gambling show. I don't want to we're doing parlays, first half, but it did strike me as just a line that was setting up James Madison to exceed expectations.
Exactly.
Because it's just so large. And this has been a team that hasn't been blown out all season, has a good defense. There's some questions about health on the Oregon side as far as I think they're probably getting their receivers back, but you don't know what they're going to be like.
Yeah, they haven't played in 2 months.
This could be a game that is a 2-touchdown game at halftime or closer. And then Oregon gets some distance. I do have concerns about JMU doing anything offensively.
Yes.
This could get sideways in a hurry for them, to say nothing of you do have to factor in the dimension of Bob Chesney is the coach in waiting at UCLA and is doing 2 jobs right now.
Yeah.
He's committed to it, surely, especially with the chance to play in the playoff. But, you could understand if it's not the same prep as it has been all season long, just with all of the things that are in the air for the team, for him personally, for his staff personally.
Yeah.
But I think that this is the Sun Belt's first chance to show themselves in the college football playoff, so it would help the conference immensely to have it go well enough that it's not just kind of why was this team allowed in? But we saw enough from this James Madison team in conference play. It's there's no reason to doubt that they can hang in this one.
Yeah.
Just the class in the end and just the different caliber of athlete over 4 quarters, I think, will make the difference. But I think it could be closer than the experts think.
And, to your point about the Bulls, I feel like the last couple of years for football and basketball more so, but for football specifically, Sunbelt's taken a little bit of a step back. There's a variety of factors. I don't know that they'll be able to kind of get back to where they were. But for now, they have certainly taken a step back. And a good showing here, I think, would be very important to kind of smooth the tide over there. So next we have the yearly Western Kentucky versus the Sun Belt Bowl.
But not Georgia State.
Correct. This time,
The Will Owens Bowl will have to wait for another. I guess there already was the Will Owens Bowl because they played Vandy.
That's true. This time they're versus Southern Miss. We both have Western Kentucky. In a much less scale, the Southern Miss is losing their coach. Much less scale than James Madison. Southern Miss is losing their coach. I do not know if he is coaching the bowl game.
He's not, but Blake Anderson
Okay, yeah.
is the new head coach and was the offensive coordinator, so continuity galore. I feel like I saw at least a few of the players put out we're happy for Coach Huff, but we're playing. Yeah. This has not been one of those things where everyone's leaving town type deal. I do just kind of, Tyson Helton's been doing a good thing in Western Kentucky for a few years now, and just kind of with the getting prepped for a bowl game. Southern Miss was kind of, not tailspin, maybe he's overcooking it, but losing games down the stretch for sure, just in a row. I just think maybe all of that leads me to pick the Hilltoppers, but
yeah.
This would be a nice one for the Sun Belt to have. If Southern Miss can win this one with all they've got going on and beat a Conference USA team head-to-head, that would mean a great deal. It meant a good bit tonight that whatever status those two teams are at, ODU went and beat South Florida.
Yeah.
Get that 10th win. That's the type of stuff you're talking about, that it's they need to start winning back the battle of perception. It's beating the peer conferences. And so this is a chance to do that.
Yeah, I agree. Next one is the fakest bowl game I've ever seen because it's a rivalry game, but it's also just another Sun Belt Conference game. Georgia Southern App State. I picked Southern, you picked App State. I think it's really hard to beat a team twice. And I do appreciate that App State got up off the couch to come do this game, but I also think that Georgia Southern can't lose this game. Like we said last week, they absolutely cannot lose this game, so I will give the quote-unquote dog factor to them for this one, but it could be a 20-point App State win, and I wouldn't actually be surprised here. Also, what is the J-Lab Birmingham Bowl? We got to come up with some better names. I know J-Lab is an audio company, but we got to come up with some better names for this, man.
I mean, you're just on the Xbox Bowl? That's the most recognizable, one of the most recognizable brands in the country.
No,
what do you want?
That bowl was fake because it was created a week after the bowl announcement started. It felt that one's only fake because it's an infant. This one's fake because the name, and the next one, it's because the names are stupid.
Yeah, not a lot of inspiration. Maybe that's why no one wanted to play. It's we don't want to go to the Birmingham Bowl. Got to have some originality. I don't have a reason other than Georgia Southern has not won a bowl game under Clay Helton for picking Georgia Southern to lose this one. I don't know who's going to play quarterback for App State. Dowell Loggins has said everyone is welcome to come back and play, but it's not clear that everyone is still on campus or even in the vicinity of campus. And both quarterbacks Georgia State saw, AJ Swan and JJ Cole, are both some of the players that have entered the portal. So I don't even know who is going to be lining up under center for them. They're, I think, 7-point underdogs, so a lot of expectation on the team who, earned their way to a bowl without a weird team skip turning it down, so it had to be someone. But I'm backing App State for some reason. We'll see. You say they could win by 20. They could lose by 20, and I'd just be this was a really dumb pick immediately. In the second quarter, I could just say, man, I just got this totally wrong. And just going with my gut here, going with history a little bit, and just... you can't take this game. And I said this word for word last week, but you can't take this game and drop to 5-8 if you're App State. You gotta have the mentality to match them in this one, even though you lost in the regular season. So
it's really hard to beat a team twice. So I know that doesn't really happen in college football that often. But
also the statistics on that is it's not that hard. In college basketball, it happens all the time that you beat a team 3 times. So
True.
I think it's 2/3 of the time it happens. So it's a cliche that is just not true at all. But
it's only true in the pros.
Yeah.
Next to our mouthful bowl of the week, the Radiance Technologies Independence Bowl. This is a future Sun Belt matchup, so it's at least fun. Louisiana Tech and Coastal. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think I just went Sun Belt homerism on the Coastal pick. I mean, I know that they're
apparently not a theme if we're looking the rest of the way down the list.
That is true. I just don't know that Coastal is in a better position to win this game, but I'm gonna pick them anyways. So,
well, it's more or less a road game for them because it's in Shreveport,
true,
Louisiana, noted same state Louisiana Tech is located. So they have that going against them. They've got the new coach in and they're excited, but I'm just backing the team that's keeping their staff together, playing kind of a semi-home game. And Coastal, I assume that Samari Collier's still out, in which case I don't have a lot of faith in the interim offense that's going to be going on there for the Chanticleers. So just kind of backing our new Sunbelt brethren to get one last win as a Conference USA member before they make the flip next season.
No, that makes sense. Rice versus Texas State, the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl.
There's some brand continuity. There's some symmetry going on there.
No, for sure. I should not have picked Texas State, but I did because I thought they ended the season much worse than they ended up actually ending.
You should have picked them, you mean?
Sorry, yes, I should have picked them instead of Rice. But you know what? I'm picking the food. So, Rice, you're 5-7. Get that 6th win, baby. Why not?
Yeah, we're each backing a losing record team to win a bowl, so everything is symmetrical in its own way. I just think Texas State might just put up 40 because this is what they do, and they are going out of the league, so we don't have to. This is probably the last mention they're going to get on the football side unless they get put on the schedule for Georgia State for some reason, which I'm not expecting. But
because they're going Pac-12, not even just like not mid-major. Jesus, Group of 4. It'd be really
it's G4.
G4.
No, it is. It's still they're not powering up. The Pac-12 is not the old Pac-12.
True.
Suffice to say, I don't know how they're gonna hang because in basketball especially you're adding Gonzaga, you're adding Boise. Like it's gonna be a tough ride, but they are keeping Brad Jackson their quarterback. I believe they had some other guys announce they're staying as well. I don't have the full list in front of me, but saw a few of those things across the board. So as far as like all of the Sun Belt teams we've mentioned, with the exception of like JMU because they're in the playoff and they just hired Billy Napier, Texas State's vibes, like they took all the good vibes from the rest of these bowl teams, especially in turn like Troy lost their game. ODU went 10 wins, but they lose Colton Joseph, so an offseason of transition to come for them, finding a new quarterback. The Texas State could kind of ride into the sunset as a Sun Belt member, taking care of business against Rice. I believe this would be the second time in the last couple of years they've played them in a bowl and won. Texas teams keep playing themselves in the bowls, which is, again, bowl committees doing their job and doing these regional matchups. I believe the Armed Forces Bowl is in like Fort Worth, so it's another 2 Texas teams playing in Texas. This is what bowl season got to keep doing, even though I don't think Texas State fans are like super enthused about playing Rice. But that's, you're playing in a bowl game. Be happy about that, guys.
Yes, Texas State beat Rice 45-21 in the First Responders Bowl in 2023, also featuring an under 500 Rice, also in Dallas, Texas, Gerald Ford Stadium.
Also, I believe they ran out of beer on the Texas State side, and it was like a whole thing on Twitter.
I do remember that. TJ Finley played in that game. That's fun.
He sure did.
What a career. What a career. Let's see. CFP. Alabama, Oklahoma. Biggest coin flip game I've ever seen in my life. Everything that I think that Oklahoma does well, Bama struggles at, and everything I think that Alabama does well, Oklahoma struggles at. So I think I leaned on Oklahoma's offense not being able to do enough in this one, and that's why I went with Alabama. I surely do not think that they will rush for -3 rushing yards again. That seems almost impossible.
I mean, they might. They're not very good, and Oklahoma's got a nasty defense.
Sure, but -3 is that's probably.
I believe it was like a first and second place was not that close as far as like poor rushing performances for them. This was like historically bad against Georgia in the SEC championship game.
Exactly. Like the last time these two played, they had 80 rushing yards as a team on 33 carries. So like they were not by any stretch of the imagination good in that game. But it's still, I just don't think that they're going to be as bad as they were. After that, Tulane, Ole Miss. I thought about this one even before I opened up the spreadsheet.
Of the two non-power conference ones, this is the more trendy upset pick.
It is, and like
a lot of uncertainty about Pete Golding taking over as full-time head coach, not interim, just taking over. But there's a lot there as far as like how much of that was the Kiffin magic, how much is the whole Kiffin saga just taking the wind out of the sails.
Mm-hmm. It was just a lot of distractions, down the stretch. And I know that they did not trip up on it because even when they played Georgia, their one loss, I don't believe there was a ton of discussion.
He hadn't really kicked off then yet.
Yeah, I don't think, was Kelly fired by then? I don't think so. I think he got fired that week actually, so that game would have been over by then. So, and it's not like they slipped up against anybody. I mean, they played Florida to 10. It was a 10-point win against Florida, but that to me is not them slipping up because they still held them under 30, scored over 30. So, but I don't know. I think sometimes with college teams, you can get into players' heads, and that does leave an opportunity for Tulane to kind of flex some of their muscles, even though I do think that this Ole Miss team is at least winning the first round good. But I kept Ole Miss. I don't think
I did the same.
It makes sense that Tulane would fully complete the job. But it'll be close. I think it'll be closer than people are giving it credit for.
I'm picking both of them to cover, as I noted in the doc. So I have Oklahoma, not Alabama. For me, the edge is just it's in Norman. Like the first game doesn't matter a ton to me because Oklahoma, frankly, should have lost that one. They got outgained like nearly 2-1 and just had a pick six and had some things go their way. But they can keep engineering that stuff, and it's a home game for them. It's a home playoff game for them. I just feel like they'll have enough, and I know they might be getting healthier for this game, but Bama just hasn't felt right the last few weeks. Like middle of the year, I felt like they were my easy best SEC team lock, and right now I just they don't feel like the same team. They might be healthier. The week of practice extra and just kind of getting fully healthy might help, but I just feel like that they peaked in the middle of October, and that doesn't do you any good in the sport anymore. And this is an Oklahoma team that keeps finding a way, and so if this is like a one-score game in the fourth quarter, not only is it at home, but they have been winning games like that for the last month of the season, including against this very team. So, but on the Tulane thing, the only thing I wanted to note here, I mean, we're already an hour 5+, so
might as well.
If you're still listening, we appreciate you for sure. Not like everyone hasn't been giving a bunch of bandwidth to these college football playoff games. I'm sure we have not hit a single completely new insight on it, but I always people have mentioned it was a 45-10 Ole Miss game when this is a rematch, which kind of wish they just slotted Ole Miss down a slot so that they did avoid the rematch and just have Texas A&M. But that would have maybe been unfair or whatever. But like, there's two parts of this where it's like you look at it and it's like, oh, they already beat them by 35. They won't be in the same league as them. But like the thing that people always talk about is like when you're the power conference team, you take your foot off the gas. You've got things to worry about. Do you think Tulane showed anything like their best stuff in that game? No. Like they struggled. Like Jake Retzlaff got benched, which if that happens again, like it'll be another blowout. But like he's playing better now. But it's like there's not enough consideration given that like these teams aren't showing like they're gonna play hard because they're gonna play hard, and they got beat on the field against Ole Miss the first time. But it's like they surely kept stuff in their back pocket because they were not gonna show their best plays. They were gonna keep stuff for future games in the season, and now they've come with the playoff and playing them again. You might see some of it. It's just kind of like wanted to touch on that as far as like we saw it in our own eyes in that building where Georgia State packed it in the second half of that game. Obviously, it didn't translate to anything better for the season for having done so, but we have seen it with our own eyes watching just the Georgia State team that we have watched of like it is not just the power conference team that kind of puts it in neutral at a certain point in these games. And so the score doesn't do much for me because once it was over, just kind of pack it in, let's get it to conference play, and then they handle their business at that point.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And then lastly, Texas A&M Miami, which is a very weird game because I think Texas A&M and Miami are two schools that definitely just blow games for no reason that they shouldn't. Texas A&M didn't do that to Texas, their one loss this year. But how many times have we seen Miami have horrible clock management down the stretch and lose a game? And I just think Texas A&M is gonna get got. I don't know when. I think it'll be here personally, but I don't feel like they are going to be leader that they were for a good bit of the year. And it doesn't surprise me that they didn't end up going to the Sun Belt, the SEC championship. I did think they were going to lose before the Texas game. It just happened to be that the Texas game was what did it.
You're just conditioned to the 8-4 Texas A&M thing, which didn't happen this year, and they made the playoff.
It's mostly that I think they can be inconsistent, because even when they were going 8-4, I do think that there was less Jekyll and Hyde. This year, just they had to do some pretty big comebacks to get, like, the South Carolina game, And there were times where the offense looked like how it did for that South Carolina game. It's just that the defense happened to be throwing shutouts, so it wasn't like South Carolina put up 30 points on them. Fact checking right now, outside of Notre Dame and Arkansas, but nobody else really came close to doing that. So it was a thing where the offense was kind of struggling for a half, and then the defense was also looking pretty poor. There haven't been many games this year where Texas A&M has done that, but they've had games where the offense has kind of felt like it's in neutral a little bit. So it's mostly that, and I just think that Miami is good enough to make them pay for it. I am kind of paddling up a creek here when it comes to some of the coaching stuff. Like, it's definitely going to be one of those games where we'll be looking up in the fourth quarter.
You will be happier if it's a blowout, because you don't want to be sweating Mario Cristobal sitting on a lead.
Exactly. I don't want Mario Cristobal to have an opportunity to Mario Cristobal it up. And I fear that is going to happen, because that's how most Miami losses happen. So,
yeah, I'm back in A&M against kind of the home team principle. I think that is going to matter a ton in these first round games, or as many rounds as it gets to where it's going to be on campus.
Certainly did last
especially
year.
If it keeps being impactful, teams are going to keep wanting it to be on campus and want to expand it. So, like, if you're in favor of them doing more of these on campus, maybe another round on campus, and not doing the bowls yet, you want the home teams to keep winning, because they're going to keep asking for it. I will say that of the teams that are playing this week, which we're just doing the first round, as I guess I learned when I opened the stock, we'll keep going. I think Ohio State's going to win when it's all said and done, but obviously we'll be projecting round by round as the results come up. Other than Oregon, who is the top seed playing this week.
There. Continue.
Well, we'll get to it, I guess, or maybe we won't. Other than Oregon, who is the top seed playing, I'm picking them to lose, but Miami would surprise me the least of the rest of the teams playing to be playing 2 rounds from now. I don't think they're going to beat Ohio State, as I just said. I think Ohio State's going to win it all, but Miami would play Ohio State. They're the team that, if it clicks, they feel like underseeded under everything, and it's just, there's been a lot of concern because they lost 2 very winnable games in pretty Miami fashion, and they don't week to week play the type of teams like Oregon does, like the SEC teams do, and so people are doing a bit of the thing where it's like, oh, they're just in the ACC, but it's like they could get into this thing and just be ready to roll, and starting College Station, get it done, and then be in a dogfight in the third quarter with Ohio State next game. I guess not next week, but next game. That's all I would say. I mean, I'm picking A&M. I think they're better, and I think they're at home. I know they're at home, but I just putting it out there just as far as, like, I do think Miami warranted being included, and could be the most interesting team left of these teams other than Oregon, Oregon really could have been the 4 seed, and I don't think anyone would have made much argument about it. Like, good program, good team.
Also, the ACC thing doesn't really make sense when you consider that Duke and Miami didn't play, and we used the computer and, like, tiebreakers to get Duke into the ACC championship game. Like, if we still had divisions, or if we still had some sort of normal conference structure, Miami would have gotten to the ACC championship game and would have won it. So I'm
up by a margin. I'm up 3 right now. We have 5 of this week's picks where we have differed. So this could flip everything if everything goes poorly for me. But I guess we still have some time to kind of make up the difference, because we're going to keep playing out the rest of the CFP. Maybe we'll throw in some of the other bigger bowl games that are happening, just to have some conversation at the end of these podcasts. Certainly appreciate everyone listening this far. If you've got your college football takes, whether it's on this week of playoff games or just the bigger picture, if you want to throw those in the comments or whatever, we'll certainly take those on board. A little bit late to join into our contest between ourselves, but certainly always love the engagement. And football, we're still playing meaningful games, and everyone's like worried about like the state of like what it's going to look like next year and who's got an agreement to be in the top 12 and in the field next year, no matter whatever. But for now, I'm just going to enjoy these football games that are happening this weekend. It's just the thing of it all.
That's the best part, you know? I mean, it's getting to the deep, deep part of the holiday season. You know, you wake up on Saturday and Christmas is 5 days away, and we've got a lot of football. I know there's a game on Friday, but it's just going to be another great game, and there's still bowls. You know, there's
a game going to be
good bowl
flip
games.
into right now as I edit this podcast, as Louisiana and Delaware are playing, which everyone listening is going to know the result. But live football happening at 9:30ish on a random Wednesday. This is what the holiday season is about for me. Yes, it's about family. Yes, it's about, you know, the gifts. Yes, it's about everything, the fellowship of the Christmas spirit. But it's also about bowl manias happening, and random places across the country are hosting two teams that haven't played in 18 seasons or more every day of the week, basically.
And I know this isn't like an NFL podcast, but just to bring in with the college football playoff and just currently what the playoff picture in the NFL looks like in both conferences, there is so much up in the air. And if you are a person who likes the sport of football, this weekend is going to be insane for you on Saturday and Sunday. So I look forward to it. You know, I'm a sicko. I will be there for all of it. You'll be there for, I don't know your NFL takes these days because the Falcons are what they are.
I'm in 2 fantasy playoffs, so
okay, good luck.
You gotta be locked in for other reasons as well.
Good luck. I was terrible this year at fantasy for a variety of reasons, and it's just I accidentally won. So I don't remember if we seed based on, it's a dynasty. I don't remember if we do the draft order based on regular season record or if there's like a consolation prize thing that happens. But I do think that I won last week, so that is not great for my draft stock.
As we're recording this, wrapping up this episode of THERSday Night Podcast, we haven't talked about this. We'll probably have to do that off air after wrapping. But next Wednesday as we record would be Christmas Eve. Regular release time would be Christmas Day. Probably going to shake up that order of things, but we don't have the exact scope of when that's going to happen. Might end up being that just kind of the holiday season comes and goes, and we are back kind of 11-ish days after the fact. But with that in mind, there's only a few handful of sporting events happening. Whenever we are back, we're going to wrap up whatever happens with the 2 basketball teams making their road trips this week. The men's team play on the 28th, so there's a bit of time leeway where we can probably get in and do the deep dive on the Columbia Koalas before that game happens. But even if we don't, if that's the next thing that's on the docket and it gets past us on our recording schedule, non-D1 game, so kind of expectations there are what they are. But whenever we are back, hope you all enjoy your holiday seasons, get with family, enjoy, as we were just talking about, lots and lots of football that's on display, but also the friendships that you're able to rekindle every holiday season. The best to you and yours from here on the THERSday Night Podcast. Thank you for listening to this long episode, and we will catch you next time.